The biggest player in the AI space, that would be Nvidia. Joining us now for insight on that, we've got Phil Panaro, founder and former CEO of Boston Consulting Group's Plantidian. Philip, thank you so much for joining us. So we teased into this talking about how you see, where you see Nvidia going, right? We had people putting price targets on, analysts putting price targets around 800, 800 plus. It's above that. But you have something even higher. Now, my notes say 5,000, but we just had a sidebar chat.
Yes.
Where do you see this thing going?
So I see it going to 8,000 by 2030. And my perspective is not from a financial analyst perspective or from a chart perspective or a stock picker perspective. My perspective is strictly from a technology perspective. Okay. And if you take a look at the market, there's two key factors that are driving that growth. The first is the AI revolution, which everybody says because that's the easiest thing to understand. But the second thing, which people don't talk about, is the transition from Web 2 to Web 3. And essentially what Goldman, Morgan Stanley, and Citibank say is that transition is worth $8 to $12 trillion. So we'll use the midpoint, which is $10 trillion. So what does that mean? Web 3.0 is not just the decentralized web, it's 3D. So basically the more immersive web. Now, Web 3.0 has been bastardized with the term the metaverse, but all of the things that are run on Web 3.0 are driven through GPUs. So as the market moves from a CPU-dominated market, which started in 1960, almost 60 years, what you're going to see is a migration of all of the infrastructure for buildings, cars, factories, city municipalities, and governments transition to Web 3.0, and Nvidia drives all of that. So what's that worth? That's worth trillions upon trillions.
So statistically speaking, Nvidia controls about, or has captured more than 90% of, say, the addressable AI market. So is the expectation, is that the growth is going to be even beyond that?
So actually, I'm actually assuming half Nvidia's growth to get to the $8,000 target. And I'll take you through it. So essentially right now it's at $800 a share. We'll just keep the numbers even. The bottom line is if you look at another stock that as at the beginning of a cycle, and I look at Amazon. In 2005, Amazon was $50 a share and did around $10 billion in revenue. By 2015, it was over $500 a share, 10 times the amount. And the revenues were 10 times the amount too, 100 billion. So that's parallel to where Nvidia is. Because if Nvidia was to capture just half of what they capture now in the AI market, they would go to 600 billion, which means their stock price would go to 10 times that, which would be 8,000. So that's very, very simple math that you can do to see what the opportunity is. But what I think people are underestimating, I know when Sam Altman talks about, there's a $7 trillion investment in chips required, people don't understand that all the infrastructure on Web 2.0, which is driven by CPU and GPU, is going to move more towards a GPU environment, which is what Nvidia provides. But what also people don't understand is Nvidia not only provides the chips, but they actually provide the network, the application development, right. And also, most importantly, which nobody is valuing, they provide digital twins, which is basically what's going to happen in the future is we're going to have a digital first strategy. So what does that mean? That means you build things digitally before you build them physically. It's the complete opposite of what happens today. In fact, BMW builds their factories as a digital model. They run simulations in the digital model, and they train their robots, and then they build the factory. So all construction, all building operation, all building maintenance is going to be moving to GPU chips.
So what everyone says, or the experts in the space say we are early in terms of this AI frontier, the Gen AI space. What inning are we in?
We're in the first inning.
The first inning.
The first inning.
That's it.
Even
though when you talk about some of this stuff has been around since the 60s or 70s. So how can it still be considered the first inning?
So let's talk about that. What's been around since the 60s is CPU. And IBM created CPUs which back in the 1960s. And CPUs are single processing. GPUs was created for gaming by Nvidia in
Right.
2017, 18, 19. Then people started only beginning to penetrate the use, as you could see in Tesla cars, Mercedes, Amazon using it in their factories. Now what you're seeing is that penetration is like 1-2%. I talked to all the CEOs at buildings, of factories. They barely understand the impact of AI. What's going to end up happening is, and I'm sure you've spoken to the CEO of Nvidia, he actually says that it's 1,000,000 times the benefit to use GPUs as opposed to using a CPU combined.
Why is that?
I actually will just go with 100. But the bottom line is that people are going to choose the GPU chip combined with embodied AI to run buildings, to run factories, to drive cars, to drive ships. Think about the disruption that's going to cause in the economy. If you just take the transportation piece, right now, eventually, people are going to move to self-driving cars. Then you're going to have self-driving boats, and you're going to have self-driving trains, and self-driving buses. And who powers all of that? That's just one segment of the economy, which is worth trillions. So you can just see that people are completely not looking at the forest from the trees. They're looking at a balance sheet. So when financial analysts look at a balance sheet, that's like hunting dinosaurs. A stock comes out every so often,
Yep.
once in a generation, where you have to look at the big picture. And the big picture is we're only in the first inning of the technology cycle for AI and Web 3.0.
So what do you say to critics who say Nvidia is too expensive now?
They're not looking at it from a technology perspective. Those are the same people who said Amazon was too expensive in 2005 when they didn't understand. It was actually losing money, Amazon. Nvidia's actually have a 50% margin. So when they looked at Amazon, they were like, this doesn't make sense. They're losing money. Why is the stock like this in 2005? What they didn't realize, it was only in the first inning of the e-commerce cycle, which now has gone on and on and on. And those people who bought that for $50 a share, by 2015, it was actually over 600.
What sectors of the economy or let's say job market are most at risk by this transformative thing that's happening in the generative AI space?
So what you should think about is AI as a positive thing. You should think about it as
Friend, not foe?
Yes, because you should think about it as like having Einstein in your basement, where you can go to it and get guidance on operating a building, on maintaining a building, on driving a car. I mean, bottom line is you should use it as an enabler. So if anything, it's going to increase the productivity. So I know you think that that estimate of 8,000 is actually very high.
It seems wild.
It actually is very low because it assumes that right now the digital penetration of the entire economy is around $20 trillion. The economy is around 100 trillion, to keep the math simple. Half of that is what they're going to say is going to become immersive, or basically Web 3.0. So my estimate is based on only keeping 20 trillion out of 100 trillion. I believe with a digital first economy where people will build things digitally, people will run things digitally, that 20% can actually go to 30 trillion or 40 trillion, because I think digital will penetrate more of our lives with AI as an enabler.
Okay, AI as the enabler and friend, not foe.
Yes.
And you heard it here first, that prediction that Nvidia, however you want to say it, is headed to 8,000 according to Phil Panaro.
Yes.
So to recap, guys, Philip said Nvidia can go to $8,000 per share by 2030. He said we will transition from Web 2 to Web 3. That alone is worth $8 to $12 trillion. He said Web 3 is a decentralized 3D world, and Nvidia will be the one to benefit most from this. He believes Nvidia is at the beginning of a 10+ year cycle leading the AI revolution. He thinks that we will become a digital first economy, which means that we will build things first in the 3D web, we will make things first, we will plan things first, and then we'll bring them to the real world, the opposite of what we do right now. He believes this is only the first inning of AI, and we've got many, many years to go. He says so much growth potential and so many ways Nvidia can grow. They can make self-driving chips for cars, boats, planes, trains, and that's just the auto sector. The potential is unlimited with Nvidia. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'm excited to see what's next. Smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll catch you in the next one.